That's why I'm particularly excited today to welcome Mr. Lekan Otufodurin to Strictly Speaking.
Thank you, Ma.
A media consultant, a trainer, and also a former online editor of a national newspaper. You heard what I just said. Is social media actually responsible? Because that's where you spend most of your time, on social media platforms.
Well, I had to say partially responsible. But it also depends on who we are talking about.
Okay.
So there's a cross-generation of people who use social media. So for younger people, they use social media in their normal social interaction. And over the period of time, they imbibe some things that they use in informal language and they use it in expression. And also because over a period of time, people have come up with different slangs, different way of saying things that they assume is normal. But for social media, I think the problem is that people are not able to differentiate when they should use their informal language and often. So I've had instances when I'm marking a script at, I teach journalism at an institute. And I have to warn people to say, look, when you are writing an exam, don't use abbreviation for me. Sometimes they don't do it consciously, but because it's something they do over a period of time, they don't understand. So I think it's something that they need to cautiously know where to put the boundary.
Yes.
But it's a new reality that we have to deal with.
Yes, it is a reality because it seems to me really that the lines have blurred between formal language and informal language. We still have to keep up with the formality of the English language. In fact, if people are not saying you're not woke or you're not lit, then it means that you're just not in this generation. But we have to draw the line somewhere.
Well, definitely we really have to draw the line. And my counsel has been that people should know at what point. So for example, a young lady came to seek internship at the Nation when I used to work. And she sent me a text message. The reason why I said yes was because for a long time, I've received text messages that are abbreviation. But this young lady typed something very correct. Every spelling was right and things like that. And I was very, very impressed. So I think there must be a line. You must know when you are engaged in informal conversation. You must also know who you are speaking with. So if you are speaking to a generation that doesn't understand you, there's no point doing so. Or if you are applying for a formal position, you need to be very careful because that could be used to assess you. It could send a signal that you are not too careful about your communication. And again, I also think that people need to be very careful because people assess you about what they see. So when you type on Facebook, for example, and you don't observe the commas, the punctuation, and yet you submit your CV and say you are a very careful person, you can't reconcile some of those things.
Yes.
They sound sometimes for the young people, it seems as if we are making a fuss about these things, but we need to ensure that things are done properly.
Particularly in the field of journalism.
Okay.
Is there a way of getting them to have a real understanding that there is a type of language that should be used formally, especially for print journalists? So how do we help journalists to improve?
Well, coincidentally, I think this time last week, I put something on Facebook and I said, give me old good journalism. And it generated a lot of controversy. I was not advocating for a return to the past when there was no internet. I was simply advocating for best practice. I'm advocating for a time when you read in a newspaper, it was gospel truth. And when you read some of these things, and the level of, the layers of check and balance was thorough. So people need to understand, even so for upcoming journalists, you need to know that there is a way to do things. There are things you say to people. When people read, they get some impression about this organization. And so that is very, very important. We can't overemphasize that. It's important to understand that we are dealing with an audience that is diverse. And so the formal approach must be, except maybe your platform uses that kind of language. If it doesn't, don't take a chance that everybody will understand it, because communication, you must be understood.
Yes.
You can't assume that I understand the way you are speaking when you are not speaking the thing that is formal or writing what is formal.
There is also something else about journalists that perhaps you'd like to talk about, because people who write for newspaper publications assume that when they go out to interview people or when they go out to attend press conferences, that they don't have to dress in a tidy way, or they don't have to speak in a particular way, forgetting that they are representing an organization?
Well, I think those people, again, it's also because we have broken from the past. There's an ethics of the profession. In fact, the ethics of profession specifically says that you must dress properly. Because how you are seen, it's perceived. There are times when you walk into a secretary, you want to see the commissioner because you're a journalist, and the secretary size you up and like, no, the commissioner is not available, because you can't imagine the commissioner speaking to this kind of person that is not looking properly. You don't have to put on suit or whatever, but you must dress in a way that conforms with the times or where you are going to. So it's important to ensure that you follow those ethics, you appear properly, and also you present yourself. There are languages you must not use. And that's why I keep talking about returning to it. Sometimes I say, give me old journalism. People didn't understand. I say, look, these were times when things were done properly. Even how you communicate with somebody. Sometimes there are things you say to someone. There's this example I use, for example. Somebody is bereaved, maybe a plane crash, and you say, how do you feel? How do you want that kind of person to feel?
I wonder.
So there's a style, there is a way to do some of these things. And what you say also elicit the kind of questions that you must get from that kind of person.
Thank you so much for your contribution. I do hope social media does not eventually turn us into almost recluses, because you find these days a lot of young people with their heads just buried in their various devices. And actually, the ability to converse is really reducing.
Well, again, social media is for everybody, so even old people are also buried in it these days, even on WhatsApp. But the point again is that we need to revive human communication. There's a lot of assumption. Because you like somebody's page on Facebook or you are chatting with that kind of person you have met, it's not the same thing. If it's possible, you really have to sometimes put those phones down and talk real life and get a sense. You know, many people are outing. You're chatting with them, you don't know what they are going through. So when it is possible, it's important that we really, really talk to ourselves.
Thank you very much. I'm really grateful for the time you've spent with me.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
When we come back, I'll be talking to John Sanaya about public speaking and social connections.